The John Steigerwald Show, AM 1250, The Answer.
In our last segment, we talked about Texas starting to open up on Friday. Meanwhile, the big move in Pennsylvania is opening the golf courses on Friday. Sean Parnell is running for Congress in the 17th District against Connor Lamb, who did some complaining on Twitter a couple of days ago about the federal government's response to Pennsylvania's request. And Sean joins us now. Sean, thanks for being here.
Hey, John, thanks for having me again.
So what was Connor Lamb complaining about?
Well, he said wrongly that we were on our own with regards to Pennsylvania's procurement for PPE, for personal protective equipment. His assertion that the Trump administration was not helping the state of Pennsylvania was not only false, but it was dangerous. And I thought it stoked fear in a time of crisis. I mean, John, can you imagine me in Afghanistan in the middle of an ambush looking at my men and screaming that we're on our own, every man for themselves? That would be a disaster. You don't do that as a leader. And not only is it just bad leadership practice, it just wasn't true because the Trump administration has done a ton for the state of Pennsylvania. And I posted all this on my Twitter account about the specific numbers of personal protective equipment that the Trump administration has given PA. And it's staggering how much support we've received.
Yeah, you listed on Twitter the exact things that he complained about not being sent here. You listed the number that FEMA had just sent like a day or so before his tweet. The thousands and thousands of items that they sent.
You're exactly, yeah. So, I mean, we're talking like 600+ thousand N95 masks, over 3 million surgical procedures and masks, like 58,000 eye and face shields. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But also, like what's perhaps even more sort of unbelievable to me is that the Wolf administration, the Democrat governor, Tom Wolf, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, came out and contradicted what Connor had said, basically said that it was false, that PA hospitals are not overwhelmed. We have 70% ventilator capacity available, and that our personal protective equipment inventory is adequate. And so everything that he said was false, and that leads me to a simple conclusion. He either, one, is ignorant and has no idea about the situation that we face in the midst of a crisis in Pennsylvania, or two, he is misrepresenting the truth to drive a Democrat Party narrative in an attempt to get more votes in November by making it seem like Trump has bungled our response to this pandemic, which, point in fact, I think the president has done as good a job as any president would have done, and if not better. I mean, the guy stands up at his podium for 2 hours every single day and gets hammered by questions from reporters. The truth is that no president has given the press this amount of access to a presidential administration, and I think President Trump has done a good job thus far leading us through this.
So maybe to be kind, Connor just needs to get out more.
Maybe he needs to get. I mean, yeah, I hear. I laugh about it with you on the radio, John, but it is tragic. And you know, if this pandemic teaches us anything, and I think when the dust settles, it'll teach us a lot. But it should show us just how important electing real leaders is to this country, not politicians, people that have actually led in executive capacities during times of crisis, you know. And I cannot tell you how many times I hear from constituents and small businesses in PA 17 that have reached out to him and they get email form letters in response with absolutely no follow-up from him. So here people are desperate. They're in crisis. I hear every day about someone talking about burning through their life savings or a small business that's on the brink of closing forever. They've reached out to Connor, and they've gotten no response whatsoever. And that breaks my heart for the people of this district because they deserve better.
We just talked to Matt Makoviak he's in Pittsburgh guy now in Texas. He's the chairman of the Republican Party in Travis County down there in Austin. And I was asking him about, you know, what's happening with Texas opening everything, not everything, but opening a lot of things up on Friday. How do you feel about, I know you're not running for state office, but how do you feel about how the state has handled this to this point?
Yeah, I have concerns. You know, I don't like a top-down approach to any crisis. You know, when you're saying, and I'll give you an example, John. Like when Lowe's and Home Depot right, can stay open, and their garden center at the height of the season can stay open, and Gump's Garden in Beaver County in PA 17 has to close. I find that inconsistent and wrong with what it means to be a leader, right? I trust the people of Pennsylvania with their freedom. We know and we understand what the CDC guidelines are. I think that we all, go back to work and stay socially distant, follow CDC guidelines. And John, I'll tell you, I don't think that we have a choice. We know a couple of universal truths here. We know that a vaccine is probably 12 to 18 months away. We know that a lockdown was meant to be a short-term measure so as not to overwhelm our healthcare system. We also know that a lockdown will not eradicate this virus. So our only choice is to reopen the economy slowly, trust that people will safeguard themselves and follow CDC guidelines, and get people back to work in this country so that we can safeguard the public health, but also safeguard our economy.
Now, you are running for a federal office, so a question would be, should these decisions be made by states and counties and not the federal government, and even municipalities, I guess?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, I think that the president, I don't use the president as an example. He's relying on the governors of states to be experts on what's best for their state. And I think a decentralized approach to, whether you're in combat and you can trust the leaders on the ground to respond to the enemy, a decentralized approach is always better. At the end of the day, county leaders and local leaders know their communities better than somebody at the top. And so I am, in times of crisis, I'm always for a more decentralized approach.
Yeah, there are. I've been keeping my eye on a couple of counties in the northwest part of the state. They're not in your district where you're running, but it's Jefferson County, Warren County, and there's about 4 or 5 states up there that have single-digit cases, not single-digit deaths, single-digit cases of people testing positive for the virus. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about the wisdom of a one-size-fits-all approach. There are people in Warren County, there's a population of 40,000 people. One person has been tested positive. One. And they got people wearing masks everywhere. It just makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, this is what I mean by a top-down draconian approach. And this is why I think you're seeing protests, John, right? And I think it's really important to understand why people are protesting. We played by the rules. We stayed at home. We tried to be team players here, in an attempt to flatten the curve to protect and safeguard our healthcare system. But now you get rules that you can't go fishing in the middle of a lake by yourself, or counties that have, as you mentioned, one case that have to stay closed. Or you can go to a drive-through McDonald's to get food, but you can't go to a drive-through church service. These are things that don't make sense to constituents and to the people, right? And so you have to ask yourself, did the governors of all states, but here in Pennsylvania, did they undermine their own stay-at-home order by being overly draconian in their response? And I think that the answer to that is yes, they have in many cases. We're talking to Sean Parnell. He's running for Congress in the 17th District against Connor Lamb. Hillary Clinton has something in common with your opponent now. She has officially endorsed Joe Biden. She did that today. You think she'll be out on the campaign trail with Joe? Maybe visit Western PA? I hope so. Because look, John, I was watching the video endorsement with Hillary and Joe Biden. I'm pretty sure that Joe Biden fell asleep right in the middle of the endorsement video. Yeah. And I think that when we see this crisis through, the more Joe Biden speaks, the less popular he is. And if Hillary Clinton campaigns and stumps with him, that's just the perfect storm. I mean, people rejected Hillary Clinton in 2016, and they're going to reject Joe Biden in 2020. Hey, Aaron, if you're listening, can you play the soundbite from Joe from today?
I would get much more engaged in the world. We can't step back. If, in fact, for example, we solve the problem in the United States of America and you don't solve it in other parts of the world, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have travel bans. You're going to not be able to have economic intercourse around the world. There's a lot. Look, when America goes alone, when America is first, it's America alone.
How do you like that? First of all, the economic intercourse, or whatever it was he said. And he basically said that America first is not good. It's it means we're alone. We should be. I don't know what he means, but you heard it. This is the guy that's going to be. He's got about 8 months to go here, 7 months to go.
I don't know what he was talking about there, but I will say that I feel bad for him. You know, Joe Biden and Joe Biden's polling right now, to me, I think he's campaigning on Joe Biden of 2008, on what people remembered him as. He's certainly not that person today. And I have concerns, and I think it's okay to raise those concerns. I have concerns about him having the wherewithal to be the commander-in-chief. I just do. And I don't think he's in any condition to be doing it. And I mean, and I hate to say it, but I do feel bad for him. I hate to see him being thrown out there by the Democrat Party.
Well, here's the thing, Sean. He's running, and he's going to be 78 on Inauguration Day. I mean, there are people seriously, as you just said, concerned about him just from a week-to-week basis seeing him. If he wins, we're talking about what he's going to be like 3 years from now. You know, when he's in the middle of his term and he's going to be 80 years old, it's mind-boggling. Meanwhile, he still hasn't addressed the charge that he sexually assaulted an intern back in the 90s. You think maybe he and Hillary have discussed that at all?
What concerns me is that I thought what they did to Justice Kavanaugh was horrific. What the media and the Democrats did to Justice Kavanaugh was one of the worst things that I've ever witnessed in my time on this earth. And I thought that it was a smear campaign. And I just said today, you know, at some point, you know, someone has to stand up and ask him the question directly about what happened. Because there is now so much evidence. There's new evidence every single day that not only is it credible, I mean, it is more than credible. And I feel like at some point the Democrat Party and Hillary Clinton and the media that has access to Biden every day needs to start asking him the hard questions about this stuff. And you know, should they not hold Joe Biden to his own standard, right, of believe all women?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I just think that he should be held to the same standard that he set for everybody else.
Well, here's what the woman who's accused him, Tara Reid, said today. She said to Fox News, "I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I voted for her in the primary. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but yet what I see now is someone enabling a sexual predator, and it was my former boss, Joe Biden, who raped me. Hillary Clinton has a history of enabling powerful men to cover up their sexual predatory behaviors and their inappropriate sexual misconduct. We don't need that for this country. We don't need that for our new generation coming up that wants institutional rape culture to change." That's some pretty strong stuff there, whether you believe her or not. That's got to be hanging around his neck until it's cleared up one way or the other. And you know, and you're running against a guy who has endorsed this guy. I mean, how does anybody who supports or endorses Joe Biden not get asked about endorsing a guy who's been accused of this and who hasn't flatly denied it yet or hasn't addressed it yet?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's concerning to say the least. You know, I mean, not only just the accusation from Tara Reid, but also the fact that the media has not directly asked him about this. Now, a spokesperson has spoken out and said that they vehemently deny it. But Joe Biden himself, I've not seen a single interview where anyone asked him about these allegations. And I think it's past time that the media stepped up and asked him, because it's important. You know, it's important that he be asked about it. He's running for president, and it certainly needs to be addressed, I think, at the national level.
I got about a minute left, and we're talking to Sean Parnell running for Congress in the 17th District against Conor Lamb. I'm just wondering, you know, as a challenger, it's always a little much tougher for a challenger to going up against an incumbent like this. How is the social distancing hurting challengers more, or is it hurting challengers more? Because you have it's more incumbent upon you as a non-incumbent to get your message out there.
Yeah, well, this pandemic has presented challenges to all of us, you know, and I think it's been important for us to adjust fire just like you would in combat. When the enemy changes their tactics, you got to change with them and evolve with them. Otherwise, you don't make it. And so we've adjusted our strategy accordingly. We're doing lots of virtual events and still getting out there, and we're doing phone banking every day. So we can't knock on doors, but we'll sure as heck call people. And the bottom line is this, is we are doing everything we can to build our volunteer base so that when this crisis lifts, we can hit the ground running and get back out there and start campaigning. And we hope that is very, very soon.
Well, Sean, it's always good to have you on. You got another, 7 months to go here. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again. I appreciate it. Hang in there.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, John.
Okay, that's Sean Parnell running for Congress in the 17th District, and we will be right back.